I think this tank fest was the first time I've seen an operating Jagdpanther. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it is. And this was of course provided by the Weald Foundation, based in the UK. They have a reputation for doing excellent restorations, mainly of German stuff, although they do branch out. Last year they brought a couple of FTs. And it was to my pleasant surprise that I discovered that my old compatriot, Hilary Doyle, who is a member of the board of the Weald Foundation, was hanging out doing some of the manning. So what I asked him to do was to basically just give us a bit of a rundown on what the Weald Foundation does and what they did to this Jagdpanther in particular. Just keep an eye out for some of the questions I've just put up on the subtitles at the bottom there. So anyway, without further ado, over to Hilary.
Okay, so the vehicle itself was assembled by MNH in Hanover, and it was one of the last Jagdpanthers issued to the Heereszeugamt, that's the ordnance depot, in March of 45. It was issued then from the Heereszeugamt to the 116th Panzer Division, and it was used in the history. You can read about the history, the breakout from the Ruhr pocket. It was one of the vehicles involved in that. How it was captured or knocked out, we don't know. We haven't found that information. But it then went to England and ended up on the ranges at Purbeck. Alongside it in Purbeck in the 70s was another Jagdpanther that had been taken out of MNH after the war by the British, and both were used as hard targets. A German collector purchased the two wrecks from a British guy that was saving wrecks from the ranges, and he brought them to Germany, but after some years decided that it was too big a job to do any restoration on it. Fortunately, Michael Gibb, who is the founder of the Weald Foundation, happened to meet this person and said, "How much do you want for them?" and purchased the two wrecks, and they were brought back to England. And this Jagdpanther is now the main restoration vehicle that people look to see how you can bring a vehicle that's totally destroyed, because the pictures of this, when you see all of the side blown away, all of the lower side of the hulls completely riddled with automatic fire weapons, everything ruined in the vehicle. But Michael brought it back, and the Weald Foundation started a restoration process that has gone on for 8 years. 90% is original. There are some panels had to be replaced because they were completely shot away, or for example this side panel over here behind the suspension, that was so badly riddled with the automatic fire and the wheels and everything were gone, that it had to be replaced from a structural rigidity point of view. So that's a brand new piece, and we were able to use original drawings that come from my collection from the factories, with the dimensions and everything, where all the holes had to be drilled and so forth. So it's a perfect copy of the original. Well, every day of the week when you're restoring, you're finding out new things. For example, there's a photograph of the late Jim. Jim was one of the very good fabricators that we had, and he was inside using his blowtorch to remove bent and broken and rusted pieces, and he was up near the gearbox, and he's playing the flame on something, and suddenly he realizes over in the corner there's something starting to glow green. And as a tank man, you know that when you see something glowing green, you get out. Jim breached the English high jump record of 3 meters that day and ran. It was only a small arms round in the end, but you don't wait to ask questions under those circumstances. Yeah, well now, 2 years ago, because it was left out in the rain here, the magnetos failed, the condenser on the magneto, and we had to do a lot of work on the magnetos and get them perfect. And then there's been a lot of re-specification of the steering drive, and even tomorrow now the engineer that's driving it will be modifying the and adjusting the steering to try and get it right, because at the moment it's a little bit less comfortable on the right hand side than it is on the left. And Bovington, of course, wants us to go that way. We want to go the other way. It'd be much nicer. All this restoration was done at the Weald. Everything, the steel work, the big heavy armor pieces, everything was done there. And Weald at this point now has about 16 running vehicles. The whole objective of the Weald is to restore vehicles to running order, fully internal and out, and with the original engines and original gearboxes, everything original. And we even have taken vehicles. We had, for example, the 250 small half-track, the Ausführung A. We had a very nice one of those, but it had no provenance. So what's been done is that has been sold to a collector, and we have now bought all the pieces for another 250A, which now has to be put together from little bits. But we can do that well with all the knowledge and everything. But the big difference is that this one, the new one that we've got, actually has the original markings on it from Frundsburg. So we know the provenance, we know where it was in Normandy and so forth. And the same with our 250B. We've now got a real original one from the 6th Panzer Division. Well, what we have is a membership. It's £48 sterling. At the show, they're doing £40 for the first year, and for that, the person can come to the open day and fully avail of all of that. They can visit the foundation on other times when there's events for members. But also every week they get 2 articles on the electronic feed on the private website. So that talks about what we've done, like the maintenance of the Jagdpanther, trying to find a new 88mm gun for the second Jagdpanther that we have. The fact that we found a carburetor for one of our armoured cars, all of that sort of information. History about the colouring. The university has done the investigation on the colour chips and so forth, and all of that information is in the articles.
Is it worth joining if you don't live in the UK?
Well, I think it is, because you get all that electronic feed and you can participate electronically. I mean, what I do is I participate by providing research support. So even though I'd be a German specialist doing research on the things like the Sturmgeschütz and so forth, in the last while they've got me to move over to the dark side. So I'm now an expert on Marmon Harrington armoured cars from South Africa. But that's the next project we have lined up. We're doing 2 Marmon Harrington armoured cars, Mark IIIs.
I saw a photo on the Weald Foundation Facebook page. You were changing out the transmission on this, and you had to pull the gun out.
Yeah.
This seems a little inconvenient.
No, yes. That's just the way they designed this vehicle. They knew that problem, but the Germans always had special tools. Sonderwerkzeuge, they were called. So there's a special bracket that fits on. If you happen to have the original kit, that helps you to lift that out properly. You have a very special bracket that fits in and allows the gearbox. You just undo the front of it, jack it up on this, and then slide it up along a special ramp. It all works quite well. It still is inconvenient by modern standards, but they hadn't got round to putting everything in the back in a package. So.
Panther has the reputation for unreliability. Does the Jagdpanther have the same reputation?
Well, it's the same basic vehicle. It's a lot heavier at the front. So they had to strengthen the transmission and the steering and so forth on a Jagdpanther. But if you used a Jagdpanther the way it was supposed to be used, it was only to be used as an army-controlled weapon by the higher command. It wasn't to be used in tight spaces. It wasn't to be used on small, narrow roads like they have around here with trees either side. It was meant to be protected by grenadiers or by other tanks, and it was meant to engage enemy equipment at over 2,500 meters, which in 1944-45 was an amazing range. And they were getting kills. There's even a documented kill of 4,000 meters.
Anything else you want to talk about on the outside while we're here?
On the outside, well, not really. I think we can walk around it if you like.
All right, so let's start. Where's the Fergus shell number? If I see a German tank and I want to know where it came from, where would I look for a number?
You have to be a member of the Weald Foundation. Then you can get in and you can come down to the driver's position. You mightn't be able to make it, and on his left shoulder, punched into the thing. Now there was data plates on it, but all the troopies who found these stole the data plates as souvenirs. That happened even during the war. So you're very lucky if you find the data plate. What they did do was, for the manufacturers, but this happened maybe back in 41, they decided there's no point in having machine fabric Niedersachsen, Hanover, Latzen and the street number on the data plate. So these guys were given a 3-letter code. And from the 3-letter code you are meant to be able to, you could look up the code book and find which tank factory it came from. And the same for the hull on this would have been manufactured by the Brandenburger Eisenwerk, and they had a 3-letter code. Everybody tried to keep their presence hidden towards the end of the war. The Weald Foundation was established as a running collection of vehicles. So the restoration of a vehicle in the Weald Foundation includes all the running gear and the interior of the vehicle. So this is the only Jagdpanther in the world that has its intact original interior. This is exactly as it would have been fitted out when it was in combat with the 116th Panzer Division, and every bit as much attention is paid to the details of all of the fittings and all of the small fittings. The radio works. We can talk to other German vehicles, and the ammunition is all genuine, original German ammunition casings, not obviously live. So every little detail, the Nahverteidigungswaffe for the grenades, all of that's correct, and as it would have been in 1945 when this vehicle was delivered. Well, I mean, nowadays a lot of people wonder about the radios, where they are, because when you take interior pictures or you look at interior pictures from the war, they don't know that the radios are off down there beside the machine gun operator. He's also the funker, the radio operator. Behind him, sitting with his head out the hatch, is the commander, and then you've got the loader operating in this area back here. And one of the final developments for the Jagdpanther, which never actually got implemented, was an autoloader.
Out of interest, what is the rückwärts halt lever that the machine gunner has?
This one here, nearest us.
Yeah.
That's for putting you can push that up and down. That's for putting in and out your Z14 binocular periscope.
Oh, no.
Oh, I beg. Oh yeah, that's the commander's lever for instructing the driver to turn right or left. It's a ship's. There is an intercom, but for general use, they found the semaphore much better. The driver has a little panel in front of him on top of the dashboard, and little red and green sections that is being pointed out to go left or right. So that's maybe a novel thing to know about. But again, that's the detail that the wheel go to. Now for that, we knew about this semaphore idea. We had to go to the VTS in Koblenz. They lent us one of these devices. But, the Imperial War Museum lent the foundation, the one from up there, to copy it. The one down there at the VTS in Koblenz lent us the one to copy it. So that we now, and of course in return, we gave them versions of this for their vehicles. So we now have a fully working steering system. Not very important, but very interesting to have the thing complete, because you look into any Jagdpanther in anywhere else, it's just usually blank, empty. Current restoration projects are 3 four-wheeled armoured cars. There's a radio car 223, the heavy support car with the 2-centimetre automatic gun 222, and then a late war radio vehicle without a turret called a 261. And we're collecting parts for a 221, which is the original scout car. It's much smaller, has a smaller body on it and so forth, but the same engines and so forth. So that's the current project. But then immediately after that, we have the 2 South African Marmon Harrington reconnaissance cars. So,
Have you driven this yet? Have you driven this yet?
no.
They're not letting you?
No, I've no training on tank driving.
It's not hard. If you hit something, nobody cares.
Well, this is true, but the Weald Foundation care because it costs a couple of million to restore. And the insurance company probably cares because they have to pay out a huge amount. No, we were at the open day. We were making the point with our own members that please stay away, because if you get hit by a passenger car at 46 miles an hour in England, you're dead. If you get hit by a Jagdpanther at 1 mile per hour, it's 46 tons. You're dead. No, and the driver, actually, a comment that's worth knowing about is the driver really has very poor and limited vision. Of course, they didn't mind what they banged into, as you say, but he really is limited vision. And if the Jagdpanther goes up on a bank, he's looking at the sky, so he's just hoping that there's nothing hidden away down there in the depths. The gun has an interesting story about it, because there was an order with the MEAG company to build these Jagdpanther, and they were meant to build by the end of the war. They should have built assembled about 1,000 Jagdpanthers. They only managed about 200. This one was one of 80 were sent over to Hanover to the M&H company to be assembled, and they were none too happy because they were churning out Panthers at that time, but they had to get involved in the Panther program and the Jagdpanther program. And then finally a new company was started up in Berlin to build Jagdpanthers. So what happened then was they were so far behind because Braunschweig, where MEAG were, was the test run for the Dresden firebombing. So Braunschweig got carpet bombed with incendiaries, and the fireball burnt over the city for 2.5 days. And this had the effect, not so much on the factory, although there was damage on the factory, it actually dispersed the population completely, so that the workers weren't available. So that's really why the factory sort of almost went out of business. But what they then had was they had 1,000 of the armoured bodies sitting there, ready to be fitted out. 400 in total of them actually got fitted out, but there was 1,000 of these guns already built, 400 used up in the vehicles. So they gave these guns to the Festungstruppen, who were building the fortifications along the German border, and 450 of them were installed on concrete mounts and on temporary girder mounts. And the gun was completely destroyed on this, but we managed to get one of those guns that had been used as a Festungsmount, and obviously we had to rebuild the carriage and so forth, but it's an original Jagdpanther gun, just never got fitted in a Jagdpanther during the war. And you know a little bit about the Weald Foundation and what we try to achieve. By the way, the founder of the foundation is Michael Gibb. All of the creative thinking is his thing, but guys like me are on the board as trustees and so forth, because it's an independent charity now, and it has to live on the endowment that he gave, which gives a monthly income, and that's how we do all our work on.
So as I put away the Jagdpanther, if you do wish to become a member of the Weald Foundation, I've had a chat with them. They will honour the Tankfest promotional rate, since you couldn't be at Tankfest and you're just watching this video. And so what you do, look for the link at the bottom in the text description, and when you're signing on as a member, look for the section that says Affiliate Membership Organisation Number. Put in Chieftain, and they'll honour it at the £40 sterling rate instead of the 48. So there you go. Thank you, Hilary, and we'll see you all on the next video.